All right, let's get into it, everyone. High school football. It is our WKYC.com high school football game of the week preview show as we get it for week number 6. I'm DeNatale. This is Tyler Carey, and surprise.
Very much a surprise.
TC, I love when we put games on the schedule. We try to look at big school, small school, east side, west side. We try to really make it for everyone. Give everyone a shot and pick games that we think are going to be compelling. The compelling big school game of the week is going to be over in Solon with Mentor and Solon. That was one of our 3 nominees. However, because of a surge in the last day and a half or 2 days, we're pleased to announce that the Berkshire Badgers at the Lutheran West Longhorns, a couple of 4-1 teams, one in Division 4, one in Division 5, will be our game of the week Friday night.
How about that, Dino? I mean, this was certainly, when we picked the games this week, what the options were going to be, this was kind of like, all right, this seems like a nice game. Let's put it on there, see what happens.
Yeah, this could be fun. This could be interesting.
Kind of throwing a bone to Brian Crane because he only gets to travel about 15 minutes to Rocky River.
It's a home game for him, more or less. Yeah.
He's been begging us to go to Rocky River for years.
For years, yeah, since we started this. So we kind of, as we put this together, it was like, well, okay, let's see. Lutheran West is a school that we've not covered. In fact, they haven't been in the playoffs in almost 15 years.
2005 was the last year, that's right.
So, the Longhorns are off to a good start. Didn't play well against Lutheran East, but other than that, they've played pretty well so far. And on the flip side, this Berkshire Badger squad that made the playoffs 4 years ago, but in 2017 and 2018 were 1-9 in both of those seasons. And now all of a sudden, they flipped the script, and they're 4-1, and really feeling very good about the way they're playing heading into this week. And both schools responded, I think, with their fans and the students and parents, and it was not a close vote, to be honest with you.
Oh, no, and that's what we want. We want to go to the places where they're going to be the most passionate about these games, not just to the bigger schools. And look, not that we wouldn't mind going to Mentor or Brunswick or some of these places. We have been to those places before, but if these small schools are going to be so passionate about getting their game broadcasted live on our website and on our social pages, all power to them. That's what we want. That's the type of passion that we need to keep things like this going, and we're certainly excited for it.
Yeah, Mark Munch Bishop will join me for the call. We'll greet you at about 6:50 over in that. It's technically Rocky River, but it's right on the border of Rocky River and Fairview Park over at by Westgate. So that's where we'll be Friday night. And
do you want to share the email you got from the Berkshire mayor, or not mayor, the
mayor of Berkshire.
I'm sure the mayor of Berkshire's happy.
The mayor of Berkshire.
Of course, it's in Burton. So
yeah, it's in Burton.
I'm just going to stop talking.
But the other day I got a great email from Michael King. He is the principal at Berkshire High School, and he wanted to say, just kind of first and foremost, hey, thanks for thinking about us. But here was the substance of his note to me. If I have it here, I had it, and now I don't have it. Essentially, I'll paraphrase. Essentially, hey, look, we're a comeback school. We're a comeback story. We've been 1-9 the last 2 years. In the offseason, our coaches and our players have taken a really close look at how we do things and how we want to operate. And, we really are proud of this, and we're so pleased and we're so grateful that you guys even thought of us to be in this. Now I just have the note and I lost it. Here we go. Yeah. Thank you for taking notice of our comeback team. The last 2 seasons, we were 1-9 and 1-9. Our coaches and student athletes put a great amount of time working on leadership skills and those skills the past 8 months, and we're truly proud of them. Thanks for taking note of a small school with big dreams.
You and I both saw that, and we both just said, man, we want Berkshire Lutheran West to win this game.
I know.
Now, obviously, we're not manipulating the poll.
I would have been just as happy to tell you we were going to Bedford for Maple Heights at Bedford, but I won't lie. I was happy with the way the vote turned out because, and the same thing can be said for Lutheran West. That's a school that for 15 years has been trying to get back into the playoffs, and I can remember when they were, they've gone from conference to conference to conference.
And this is their first year in the CVC with Berkshire now. This is the conference game.
And now it's maybe they're home. Maybe they're finally. I mean, this is a long trip for a team from Burton to have to go all the way to Rocky River, but to get a game like this in Week 6 is pretty special.
And you will notice that if you look at the regional rankings, neither one of these teams is ranked in their respective top 8s right now.
Yeah. Berkshire's close. They're right on the outside, and Lutheran West, I think, is 10th in their district.
They're both right there, but that is the problem. They have kind of beaten up on some weaker competition.
Yes.
So this makes this game all the more important because if you win this and you beat a team that's got a shot at the playoffs, well, then those computer points start racking up, and then maybe, just maybe, you can get one of those last 8 spots. So I would assume that the coaches and players both know how important this game is, and that's going to make it all the more exciting when you guys get there on Friday night.
Yeah, can't wait. So a lot on the line here Friday night again. Berkshire and Lutheran West will be our game of the week, but no shortage of other big games. We mentioned that Menor-Solon game is big and kind of takes us into this week's top 5 as voted by the 3 News sports staff. And I would imagine not too many changes, I would think.
No, in fact, it's the exact same as last week.
Yeah.
I assume Menor at this point is pretty much a unanimous number 1.
Yeah.
And they, again, take the top spot this week. They beat up on Medina. You ready for this, Dino? 63-7. Last Friday night. This was a Medina team that you saw that looked pretty good against Euclid.
Yeah, a good, solid Medina football team.
This is not an indictment on Medina either. This is just how good Menor is.
No, especially, it's one thing, I mean, Menor's offense, if you say, well, they put 63 points on the board. No, I'm not that surprised. But the fact that their defense shut down Larry Laird's air raid offense like that, that's impressive. That tells me a lot.
We're going to give you an update on the rankings, too, for Menor. They are first in the AP poll, D1. We expected that.
Of course they are.
Also first in the Midwest in the United States in a couple of polls. They're either first or second. I think Hale High School in Louisville, Kentucky is the one that they're kind of battling it out with right now. Some of the national polls. National Prep Poll, they are now 20th in the country. All of the United States. USA Today, 19th. They moved up 5 spots in that poll. Max Prep's Excellent 25, 15th. High School Football America, 14th. Max Prep's Freeman Computer Rankings, 12th. They dropped a spot after winning by 56 points.
Their road now, Menor's road to an undefeated regular season. They've got Solon this Friday. That's going to be, I mean, Solon's a team that's been a thorn in their sides. I mean,
they beat them last year by 1 point.
Jim McQuaid knows how to get his kids ready for the Menor game. So they got a tough one Friday. Then they got Brunswick. Brunswick's playing well, coming off the win against Strongsville. Then you got Shaker Heights. Forget about the record. It's always, a lot of times you play that game on a Saturday, and they're going to play it on Saturday at Shaker this year. It takes you out of your routine a little bit. That's a challenge. Then you've got Euclid, still hasn't lost a game yet, and then you got Strongsville to wrap up the year. If they go 10-0, they're talking about Menor, they'll have earned it.
Absolutely.
It's a tough stretch here in the second half of the season.
They'll certainly be in the discussion for one of those top national rankings. By the way, I was surprised by this. No D1 team in the state of Ohio has finished undefeated since St. Edward won it all back in 2010. Yes. So it's been a long time, 9 years, but I think if anyone can do it, it's this Menor team, and it's going to be fun to watch down the stretch.
Yeah, be curious to hear Friday as we get the scores from you, how that game in Solon's going.
I will keep you guys updated.
See if Solon can't, try to. A lot of times when Solon has beaten Menor, that's because they've been able to outscore them. It's one of those games like 42-41 or something like that. Can they do that? Can son of McQuaid put together a great game? Can Pat have a big game? We'll see.
We're going to have to find out. All right, number 2, also fairly unanimous at this point, Massillon. Dino, some of the stats that came out of their 56-0 win over Firestone this past week.
Pretty staggering, right?
We kind of expected that against a team like Firestone, no offense. But first of all, they've moved up to first in the AP D2 poll. Aiden Longwell, who last week broke the school touchdowns record, passing touchdowns, is now Massillon's all-time leading passer with yards with over 6,000. Dino, first quarter for the Massillon Tigers. Ready for this?
Yeah.
They ran 5 offensive plays.
5 touchdowns?
Possessed the ball for 52 seconds. 3 touchdowns, a block punt return for a touchdown, and a Jaden Ballard punt return for a touchdown. By the end of that first quarter, despite only possessing the ball for 52 seconds, they led 35-0.
In 1 quarter. In a 12-minute quarter. That's pretty, that's domination.
Dino, I don't think we've seen a Massillon team this good in a long time.
And here's their schedule to kind of close out the second half of the season. Austintown Fitch this week on the road. a team in Pennsylvania Gateway. That's always a little dicey because you don't know what we don't know a whole lot about them. They're 5-1.
Right.
Barberton, tough team, but
we may have to keep an eye on that one.
Keep an eye on that one. Tough team. That's at Barberton. Louisville, and then, of course, the showdown with McKinley on the Saturday, the last game of the season. I mean, but it's a schedule that, they have to go to McKinley. They have to go to Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. But other than that, it's a schedule that, to me, looks like 10-0.
You do wonder at this point if they're almost looking ahead to the regional final in which they would likely play Archbishop Hope.
Right.
Because that's the
only
team
team
they played
right
in the
now
state championship game last year.
Yeah.
They lost to it. They could have beaten them had it not been for a couple of miscues.
Yeah.
And yet it almost looks like they're on a collision course at this point.
Yep. Sure feels like it.
And speaking of the Hoban Knights, they are number 3.
Now Now they had their arch rivals, St. V.
Yes.
Last Friday. So sometimes that's one of those games. It's like, okay, throw out the records, rip out the records. It's a grudge match.
Right.
The defensive domination of Tim Terrell's team was pretty staggering.
Well, yeah, they won 30-0, by the way. Kind of a ho-hum 30-0 win for Hoban. It seems like they do that every week. Yeah. Trey Ainham and Caden Clark had touchdowns. We expect that. I told you this earlier. The amount of yards for St. V on offense, 17.
17.
The entire team,
17 yards.
17 yards of offense, negative 20 yards rushing, Dino.
Yeah, and as I told you, that tells me that's obviously a lot of TFLs, a lot of sacks.
Yep.
It's getting in the backfield, and that's, Trainham and company. They're so noted for being able to score with their athleticism, but obviously they can play defense too, and they're playing on a mission. That's the thing now.
It's amazing that a team that has won as much as they have can still have that chip on their shoulder of we feel like we're undervalued. We feel like teams overlook us. I don't know if anyone's overlooking them right now, but they feel that way. And you almost think that Hoban can't surprise you anymore. Yeah. And then you look at a stat like that, 17 yards of offense.
Right.
And your eyes just bug out. What am I looking at? Yeah. They do get Benedictine this week, though. That's going to be difficult.
And that's going to be. It's a Saturday game at Bearcat Stadium. That'll be a test. That'll be another test. It's a road game. We'll see what happens. But after that, Lake Catholic, Padua, Walsh Jesuit, and NDCL. Pretty much kind of like Massillon, where you sit there and you go, yeah, that looks like it could be 10-0, or actually in their case 9-1. I'm sorry, with the loss.
Yeah, and at that point you start looking ahead to Massillon maybe, but
exactly.
Again, you got to play the game, so we'll wait and see. All right,
Yep.
Number 4, again unchanged from last week, St. Edward. They are now 3rd in the D1 AP poll, despite having that one loss by 1 point to Mentor. They beat up on Winton Woods last week, 51-31 down in the Cincinnati area.
That's a good team. Yeah. That's a good team that they beat up on.
Joseph Fermani, after having a good game last week, 6 total touchdowns, more than 200 all-purpose yards for the Eagles. Dude, this team's legit.
Yeah, they're very good.
Yeah, and
you
know that they're almost trying to look ahead, not look ahead, but they're looking at it like last year where they lost to Mentor early on. They kind of lost their footing a bit. Then they got into the playoffs. They end up beating Mentor in the regional final and going on to the state championship. I don't want to say that first game meant nothing to them, but they almost think, okay, we're going to get a do-over.
Keep in mind now, St. Edward will play St. Ignatius not in Week 10, as has been the custom. They're playing a week from Saturday. So just kind of keep that in mind as you think about the final stretch of the season for those two teams.
I do wonder if they moved that up because they didn't want a situation like they had last year where they met in Week 10 at First Energy Stadium and then they ended up meeting in the playoffs the next week. That's so weird. I think that may have been the only time it happened. I'm not sure, but I understand why you want to avoid that.
I know why they're doing it. It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah,
I like that game, and it's kind of like you do that on the same Saturday as McKinley and Massillon.
Exactly. So, you love those big rivalry games to be on the last day of the season, but you know what? I guess you can't knock them for it.
It still will be big.
Oh yeah. And number 5, again, like last week, Euclid. They beat up on Elyria this week. I think, unfortunately, a lot of teams are beating up on Elyria this year. They're 4th in the AP poll. They're 5-0 for the first time since I don't know how long ago, because our records that we have don't go back that far. It's at least 20 years. Yeah. And Dion Valentine had a couple of more touchdowns. I think they get Strongsville this week, your alma mater.
This is the stretch now for Euclid that's going to get tough here. Strongsville, Solon, Brunswick, Mentor. This is why we've said when we did that Euclid Medina game a couple weeks ago, kept coming back to it. It's like this conference is really, really tough. Now, I do think Mentor might be a leg up on everybody, but everybody else is generally really good.
And we know Euclid is capable of beating Mentor because they've done it in the past. And we know Mentor is capable of losing one of these games because they did it last year against Solon. That was a game that they probably should have won. They had much more talent, but the Comets won that game. Yeah. They always manage to slip up once in a while. So not saying it will happen, but something you got to keep an eye out for.
And I think this week will also tell us a lot about Strongsville because they went over to Brunswick last week, lost the rivalry game on the road. Now they're home, and they've got Euclid. I mean, and it's one of those things you feel like if you win and you kind of stop the bleeding, knowing you still have to deal with Mentor down the line, they'll play Mentor in week 10, okay, then you feel good about yourself. But you start losing, and then it becomes like a domino effect, and it's happened to that program in the past.
Yeah, they did make the playoffs last year at 7-3, so even if they lose this week, I don't think they'd be done.
No, it's not the end of the world.
But you're right, they got to right the ship at some point, or maybe you could start to get unraveled down the stretch.
And you need a win like that helps define your season.
Absolutely.
So I'll be watching that.
Yeah.
I know they didn't make the list, but kudos to the Avon Eagles, Mike Elder's
Absolutely.
squad. They hung a 56-0 blowout win against Midview.
Big rivalry game.
And I mean, they took Midview apart.
They are now number 5 in the D2 poll, by the way. A lot of teams I didn't mention that made some of those polls. Dino, there are now 4 Northeast Ohio teams that are ranked number 1 in their respective divisions in the state of Ohio.
Picking up right where we left off last year.
Kenston has moved up to number 1. Kirtland is number 1 in D5. Orville right behind them at number 2. And then you have other teams in the top 5. Norwalk, St. Paul over in D7. Other teams like Perry is number 2 in D4. Yeah. One team that I want to bring up, though, that is not anywhere near the rankings, and they are in trouble right now, St. Ignatius. They lost last week to Clarkson Football North, I believe, out of the Ontario area in Canada by 1 point. Dino, this is still a good football team. We know they're a good football team because they beat Archbishop Hoban, because they barely lost to Mentor. But now you're in a situation where you almost can't afford to lose more than one more game.
They're 12th in their computer region. They've got a team from Florida, Rockledge, that's 5-0 coming to town this week. Then you've got over in, I believe that they're playing in Lakewood, St. Edward at Lakewood Stadium, at Moeller, St. X, and then a team from Toronto.
They're in big trouble.
So, you pretty much now. I mean, they've gotten in, I think, at 6-4 before, but you better start getting some wins here.
Well, and this is what you kind of run into when you play these big national schedules, which I don't begrudge them for doing, but if you don't win those games, those don't get you any points.
Right.
And you start to fall down in the rankings, and then you're in a situation where, okay, we now have to win this game, or we're not even going to have a shot.
Right.
And it's a shame because we know that this team is more talented than that 2-3 record shows. But they could end up on the outside looking in, and it's got to start this weekend against that Florida team. And I don't know if they can win it against that 5-0 team, but it's Chuck Kyle. We all know what he's capable of. We're not going to write him off.
At the same time, would it surprise any of us if they went 5-0 in the second half of the season?
No.
Of course not. Of course not. So, but we'll keep an eye on that. That game's a Saturday game against Rockledge. So, a lot of interesting Saturday games this weekend.
Yeah.
So we'll certainly, in addition to covering Friday, when we get back here next week, we'll have a lot more kind of an idea of how the playoff races are going to be shaping up here for the last 4 weeks of the season, based on, I think, a lot of those Saturday games, too. So, again, our WKYC.com game of the week for this Friday from Division 5 Berkshire at Division 4 Lutheran West. First time we've seen either of these teams. It's going to be a treat. They're both 4-1.
Have you ever covered these teams before?
Never.
And you're
never
either
I've done
of these
Lutheran
teams?
West basketball, but never football before.
Wow.
So this is going to be fun.
Second time this year we've covered a game with 2 teams you have never covered before.
I've never called before. That's that was one of our challenges. Our digital content manager, Denise Pulverine, we talked about, we put the season together and schedule together and said, boy, when we do some of these games, we figure out our nominees, it would be kind of cool if we could, do games with teams that we've really never seen. And I'm not just talking me, but, that we didn't have last year at all on WKYC.com, and that's been the case in a lot of these games, and I think it's great.
Yeah, I think other than the first 2 weeks, the last 3 weeks have been to stadiums that we were not at last year. We've covered some teams like Medina we had covered in the game against Wadsworth, but we're going to new places, and I think more people are taking notice because of that, and we're certainly happy about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see you in Rocky River. Mark Bunch Bishop will join me Friday, 6:50 or so, right after the national anthem will be our start time, and then Tyler Carey will have the website updated, WKYC.com, with scores, and we'll be passing those scores along to you as well, plus interviews after the game. Brian Crane will be kind of shooting the sights and sounds before the game. It's an experience. We hope you'll enjoy it with us on Friday. For Tyler Carey, I'm Dave DeNatale. Thanks for watching our special WKYC.com High School Football Game of the Week preview right here on Facebook Live and YouTube.